Hey guys, Easter is right around the corner and I am a chocoholic, so I had to figure out a new chocolate keto candy treat. I decided to tackle the Cadbury Creme Eggs, and I think I made a better tasting sugar-free version. So, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia, I'm a pastry chef with a sweet tooth, and now I own a keto gluten-free bakery, and I'm here to teach you all the tips and tricks on how to make the best keto recipes possible. So if you are interested in all the tips and tricks, hit up the description box and click the blog link to the full recipe. But if you enjoy my recipes, please still give this video a thumbs up, leave me comments, share with all your friends and family. It doesn't cost you a thing, and make sure you see my videos every Saturday. Today, some what I think are better tasting Cadbury Creme Eggs. And this is something I was never really a big fan of. I loved the commercials when I was little, but I don't think we ever got Cadbury Creme Eggs. So I did buy one, and I was shocked at how expensive they were. I was gonna buy like 5 or 6 of them to like kind of cut open throughout this process of trying to figure out a Cadbury Creme Egg, but they were $1.46 for one egg. I ended up buying one more for the end of this video to like kind of compare with the ones we make, but the ingredients in a Cadbury Creme Egg is literally just corn syrup and sugar, and it says 2% or less of like flavoring and egg white. So I did try like a little bit of the filling, and I was not very impressed with it, and it was pretty grainy and just not very appealing. My all-time favorite, Reese's eggs. I have a recipe for that already though, so I'll link it up there for you. Today we're gonna make a more delicious Cadbury Creme Egg. I started out this recipe watching Claire from Bon Appetit making gourmet Cadbury Creme Eggs, and she literally didn't even try to recreate the filling. She's like, it's just sugar. So what she did was a condensed milk filling, which I did do, and it did turn out delicious. But you have to keep that in the refrigerator, and it wasn't anywhere near the same as a Cadbury Creme Egg. And with what I do with keto, I try to recreate it as close as possible, but hopefully make it taste a little bit better, and obviously no sugar. So that's what I did with this recipe. So I ended up kind of making a corn syrup. Like, I do have an allulose corn syrup recipe, so I'll link that up there for you. But for this, I just started from scratch with the allulose. This is 3/4 of a cup. You can make any amount of this you want for whatever egg molds you have. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of water to that, and I'm getting it on the stove. I'm not even getting it on the heat yet because it took like no time at all yesterday, and I actually took my first one too far. So I'm not even going to turn that on yet. So you are going to need some kind of molds for this. I'm not a huge fan of these ones. They were quick to arrive. They were like get it the next day kind of thing. And I thought I was going to shoot this video a while ago, so I wanted them as soon as possible, but they're a little bit too small. These are what I did my first test in, and these are kind of big. But I only did half ones, and so these would work too. The mold is up to you. The amount of filling, the amount of chocolate, all that is up to you, easily upped and minus. The amount we're making today, I didn't like these ones very much, and they were kind of hard to get like a thick chocolate in here. So I'm only doing these ones here, and I'm gonna do 2 rounds of it. So that'll be 20 little Cadbury Creme Eggs. Now to add to the corn syrup, instead of adding a ton of powdered sweetener, which is what I didn't want to do for this, I wanted something that was really just creamy, vanilla-y flavored. So I went with a vanilla whey protein powder, because products that have vanilla in them already always have a better vanilla flavor than just adding vanilla extract. We are going to add vanilla extract on top of this, but I wanted that vanilla flavor you can only get from like store-bought products. So I got a vanilla whey protein. On top of that, I wanted it a little bit more creamy, so I opted to use some heavy cream powder. I did try this recipe with using heavy cream and butter, and it was just too loose with the liquid. So that's why I went for powdered here. If you have just whole milk powder on hand, you can use that. We're literally not using very much. We're just using enough to get it stiff enough so that it isn't too liquidy when you go to bite into this chocolate egg. The other thing that helps stiffen it up even more than using butter is cocoa butter. This is something I got on hand for other recipes I was trying to figure out, and I have to use it up. So basically what we're doing here is making like a white chocolate. So cocoa butter, a little bit of, usually there's milk powder, a sweetener, and then vanilla. So if you don't want to do any of this, you can probably just add 2 tablespoons of a keto white chocolate chip, and that should work fine too. I don't think you go wrong with this recipe. If anything, it'll be a little bit less stiff of a filling, but it'll still taste delicious. It just might be a little bit more messy, but that Cadbury Creme Egg was pretty messy when I bit into it, so that's kind of the name of the game with this candy bar. So we are using a pure vanilla extract, and we're sweetening it with liquid stevia. I'm doing the stevia. You can definitely use like a liquid monk fruit extract. Chalk Zero does have Cadbury Creme Eggs. Well, their version of a cream egg, and they just use soluble corn fiber, palm oil, milk powder, monk fruit extract, and vanilla. So we're doing the similar thing here, except for instead of the soluble corn fiber, we're using an allulose syrup. I'm doing less of it. Theirs is almost like frosting inside of chocolate. Ours is going to be more ooey gooey. Very similar ingredients. Ours costs a little bit less to make than buying the Chalk Zero ones, and a little bit more than the store-bought ones. So I'm going to turn this on medium heat, and we're cooking that to 280 degrees. I always just keep my laser thermometer. It's so much easier than trying to take the temperature of this much liquid in there. Since we're not making a ton of these, we're not going to need a ton of ingredients here. We need 1.5 tablespoons of vanilla whey protein powder. I'm sure you could use egg white powder in here as an alternative if you want to make this dairy free. You can probably even use like a coconut milk powder instead of the heavy cream powder. I don't think this is a very particular recipe. Very just, you need to have some kind of powder in there to make it thick enough so that it won't just ooze out of your egg when you go and bite into it. So 8 grams of the vanilla whey protein. I'm sure you can use unflavored also, but this has sweetener in it too, so you got to keep that in mind. If you're sweetening it with the stevia, you might need a little bit more. 1.5 tablespoons of the heavy cream, should be 9 grams. Like I said, don't think you got to be real particular. I'm just having it on the scale because that's how I am. Give this a little swirl around, get all that sugar sweetener melted. I'm just going to add a pinch of salt to my dry ingredients here. Salt always helps bring out the sweetness. This is what you really need the scale for, because it's really hard to measure this in cups, and there's not even any like measurements on this at all. I kind of tried to go for the cheapest that looked the nicest still brand. There's a lot of different brands online, so it's really hard to pick and choose what's the nicest. You could possibly melt this and measure it. We need 21 grams, which is normally 3/4 of an ounce, which I would think would be a tablespoon and a half. I think this is 1/3 of a cup. So yeah, it'd probably be about a tablespoon and a half once melted. And then last but not least, vanilla and some stevia. I'm gonna turn this up a little bit now that we're almost ready to go here. 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Oh, really don't like this bottle. And a 1/2 teaspoon of liquid stevia. This is to taste, so I would make your whole mixture and then sweeten with the stevia to taste. Really doesn't take long, so keep a close eye. The smaller your pot is, the longer it'll take, because the syrup will be thicker in the pot, and it might turn more golden if you don't use a big pot or medium pot for this. The extra equipment in immersion blender makes it really nice and smooth and creamy. I did it without it and it works, but it's not as creamy because you're not blending that up really good in there. While this is going, clean up your area. I like hover it above the heat when I'm taking the temperature, so you're not getting like hot direct heat temperature on the bottom. Okay, we're at 280, 285, good. Pour it into a glass measuring cup. Pyrex is what I recommend for sure. And then your vanilla. Already getting thick in there. Add in your cocoa butter, let it melt. Get one of these really clean, get all of it out of there. We're gonna put some of it into here to color yellow for our yolk. Once this cocoa butter's melted, add this in and blend it up. That's another added ingredient, is just a little bit of natural yellow food coloring. Obviously it's optional, but that's what's gonna give you the egg look. Add in your powder, blend it up. Make sure it's a nice, thick, cohesive mixture. Taste it right now for sweetness. Should be really sweet and vanilla-y, because when it cools down, it's gonna be less sweet, less vanilla-y. Right now, it's like super vanilla and nice and sweet. There is your cream filling. It's not super thick right now, but it's still pretty hot. I'm gonna measure this out. I would do about 2 tablespoons into here, 24 grams-ish for the yolk. I'm gonna put in some yellow, a little bit more. There we go. Now I'm gonna get 2 disposable piping bags, but you could definitely use just Ziploc bags for this. But I buy like a big pack of really cheap ones on Amazon. I'll have them linked below. So I'm just gonna put these into here. Then I use these, which are like $1, and just get it all down to the bottom there. Because once this cools, it's gonna get real thick and hard to get down to like the bottom of this. So make sure you keep it clean. Do the same thing with the white. You can add a little bit of titanium dioxide, which is white color, to your cream if you want. I opted not to do that. I do have some, which I kind of want to, but I kind of don't. It's that torn between looking like the real thing and using chemicals. Now, if your kitchen is as cold as mine is, this is gonna get solid pretty quick. So if you have a way to warm up your house if it's real cold, I would do so. I'm gonna get a pot with just a little bit of water in the bottom to melt our chocolate, which is the next step we gotta talk about. Now, Cadbury Creme Eggs are traditionally milk chocolate. And while I love milk chocolate because it is the sweetest of the chocolates, I don't use it very often because it is higher in carbs. And I tried it the other day and it just like, it doesn't have that hard chocolate candy snap to it. At least the Bake Believe that I bought doesn't. So I'm opting to do half semi-sweet, half dark chocolate for this. And the Bake Believe chocolate has been on rollback at Walmart. I don't know if it's at everybody's store, but I've been stocking up every time I go because I'm like, oh, it's still on rollback. I'm gonna grab more. So I'm just gonna do 6 ounces of chocolate, but we're probably not gonna need it all. But it's way easier to melt more chocolate and fill up molds with more chocolate than it is to be scraping the bottom of the bowl trying to get enough for what you need. I'll measure it for you in cups. I'm gonna do half and half. That's why I don't like using cups, because like I can keep going. So just over that much of a cup. I got this on medium heat. I'm gonna let it melt. I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of coconut oil to that. If you don't want it to have any remnants of coconut flavor, don't use extra virgin, use a refined coconut oil. You can also use cocoa butter and stuff like that. I'd rather just add either coconut oil, or you can do the palm shortening if you have that on hand, if you made my Oreos. And you're just gonna melt that until most of the chips are melted, but you want some left to melt residually without going over like 90 degrees. I turned it down to low. It looks like it's melting pretty good. Now, the biggest obstacle I had with these was getting the edges thick enough with chocolate. So unfortunately, I had to do it the way a lot of chocolatiers do it, where they fill up the whole mold, let it sit for a minute, dump it out, and then put it upside down on a cooling rack, which I hate doing because you end up wasting chocolate on the rack. But I kept trying to fill them in. I did 2 coats with like melted chocolate, like trying to get the edges nice and thick, and I couldn't get it to the point where it was easy to put the 2 halves together. And when I put the 2 halves together, it'd be like not really an egg shape anymore because like the edges were so thin. This was the only way I was able to get really nice, thick edges on these half egg molds. So I'm gonna take it off because it's at 106. And I still got quite a bit of chips. I'm gonna turn this off because I'll probably keep residual heat enough to keep it warm. This is the first time I've done this in a long time. I usually do the microwave, but I feel like with doing these molds, and we're gonna have to do this twice, I feel like it'd be easier to have it this way. We're at 99 and still have some chips left, so that's good. Basically, this is like the seeding method, just we're not adding additional chocolate. We can if we have to, but the whole point is to try not to have to add more chocolate to it. A couple of chips left in there. You can also move it around to cooler parts of the table. I want it pretty flowy, so if you're a chocolate, you can use any chocolate you want. I feel like Chalk Zero is a little bit thinner, so you might not need as much coconut oil. So we're at 92. I think most of the chips are gone. So I'm just gonna add in 2 more semi-sweet, then hopefully it'll be down to 90. Or under 90. So what I did, okay, at this point, since I don't have this on, I think it's okay to leave that on there. And doing this makes me miss my mom's old chocolate sucker molds, like the hard plastic ones that we used to use as kids. 'Cause it's really hard to work with these silicone ones when doing this. Let that chill for a minute. Just be careful with doing this because there's water under here. You want to make sure you don't get any water in your chocolate. I'm definitely not a chocolatier. We had one chocolate unit in school, and that was a long time ago now. Okay, my biggest thing with this is just trying to minimize the amount of waste, because keto chocolate is not cheap. But I have looked into making my own, and it still seems to be not cost effective. But the nice thing about making your own is you can, control the ingredients. At this point, I think we can flip over the first mold over our bowl of chocolate. I'm gonna coax the chocolate out of there. Okay. Another swipe, and upside down on your rack. And the second one. You want to wait until you see no real thick drips coming out of here. And change your angle a little bit. Halfway through, a little bit more out. When it kind of stops dripping, that's pretty much when you're done. It gets too thick to drip anymore. Upside down. I'm throwing this in the freezer just to set up as quick as possible. I'm going to keep this kind of warm because we're going to have to do this all again. So just keep an eye on your chocolate. Make sure it doesn't get too hot. The whole thing with the tempering is you might not get a super snappy egg if it's not tempered, or if it's, taken too hot and stuff like that. Or it could get that white coating on the outside. It's not like it's bad tasting or anything. It just doesn't look as pretty. I'm just gonna keep it kind of over on the stove so it's kind of warm. Be back in just a minute. We'll fill all those ones. Forgot, you should technically just let them sit to the side and drain some more, not put them into the freezer. That's what I was doing with all my other tests. So these ones kind of stuck. Oopsies. It's like me to mess something up. When I go to actually shoot the video, they should be thick enough around the edges, hopefully. But we didn't really waste too much chocolate that way. They were only in there for like 2 seconds. I have a small pan here that we're gonna use to melt the edges to get them to stick together. First, we gotta fill them. So a pretty decent sized hole on this one. Make sure you don't get it in anything. We're gonna fill it up pretty high. And this already got pretty stiff down here, not up here. There we go. Now we're getting to it where it's not super thick. Since there's so little in here, I would just massage it a little bit, get it a little bit looser. A little yolk. And that's 1/2 of them. Basically want to use about half the fill in here. If you don't want it to lose any, squeeze the tip and kind of put it up. Throw these into the freezer just to solidify it a little bit more. And then we're gonna put them together. And then we gotta make another batch, but I'll probably do that off camera. Okay, it's only been in there a minute. I just turned my pan on low. We're not even gonna need it on for very long. So we're gonna pop out. Oh, see, that one wasn't thick enough. So, I did them opposite. Oopsies. So try to push from the bottom. And then you wanna make sure the yolks are in the same spot. Melt it a little bit. Put them together like that. Got your little egg. Melting them a tiny bit. So I put the design on the wrong side, so we're gonna have to use these guys. And then what is really helpful is to use some of your chocolate into a piping bag, and if there's any like spots where there's little holes, you can fill in with a little bit of melted chocolate. And that's just because allulose likes to flow out of any little hole that there is available. If you watched my Snickers video, you know all about that, but allulose just has a mind of its own. It's like the blob, it just goes everywhere. And if you have a seam that's not set and you have a little bit of melted chocolate, you can go around, fill it in a little bit, but you're gonna get fingerprints on your chocolate. I'm gonna turn off my heat now. You don't wanna cook that chocolate that's on the pan there either. And if it gets too hot, it'll melt too much. See, that one didn't melt enough on that side, but it did on that side. Like those ones didn't match up quite right. You can also take some of the chocolate, but it's hot, so be careful. You can kinda fill it in a little bit. If your chocolate's real thin, it'll melt when you touch it with hot chocolate. There you go. This is reminiscent of the hot cocoa bombs too. Whoop, don't let them lean too much to one side because it is still pretty flowy in there. Okay, there we go. We got 10 Cadbury Creme Eggs. I'm gonna make another 10 and then we get to taste them. They are able to stay out at room temperature and that's when they're nice and flowy. Okay, Okay, so my second molds are filling back there. This is all I had left. I had just enough to fill both of those again full of chocolate to then empty into this bowl. So I'm gonna measure it out. So what I do when I'm figuring out macros for you guys, I always measure what chocolate I have left and minus it from the total, because this recipe, literally there's like 1 carb in the filling. So that's why I said you can double it. You can fill them up super high. You know, if you are making bigger eggs, you're gonna probably need more filling, depending on how many you make, obviously. So there was 2 ounces left, so I was right. So it was 4 ounces of chocolate altogether that we needed to make 20 eggs. But I let it harden like this, and then it pops right off of here, and I put it in a Ziploc and write on it what chocolate it is. Okay, so if you let them cool at room temperature, they look a little bit better. They're a little bit smoother. I cleaned up some of the edges because they weren't rock hard yet. Now I'm going to fill them up. I think we can fill them a little bit more even. I still have some extra in here. I still have this little bit here in case we need it. So if you have the same molds as me, you probably have enough to do another 5 eggs at least. I'm gonna freeze these for a bit and get them put together, and then we'll try them. Okay, and we're back with our -1 Cadbury Creme Eggs and our original one here. I'll put up the nutrition facts. So 3 of these is pretty much equal to 1 of these. You weigh them out, 33 grams. 32 grams. So only 1 gram of net carbs for 3 of these, when there's like 22 or something like that in a Cadbury Creme Egg. But we'll do a little comparison here. I still cannot believe that these are $1.50 each. That's crazy. This whole batch cost us about $6. Oh, the yolk is seeping out a little bit. Do a little side-by-side cut open here. Ooh. Ooh. I'd say pretty similar. Ours might actually be a little bit more filled than this guy, but it's just like basically just corn syrup and probably a bunch of powdered sugar, supposedly a little bit of egg white. Mine's still kind of cold because I had them in the fridge. Very similar in consistencies. These are just so good and like poppable. Take a nice bite of them. Sweet, vanilla-y. They are delicious. 3 little bites, delicious. I think this is a pretty good swap for Easter time this year. So I hope you guys enjoy this recipe and give it a try for yourself. If not this one of my delicious candy recipes. I'll link my candy playlist up there. I did do a whole video with bigger egg molds and making like fat bombs in egg shape for Easter time, making a bunch of different flavors. But I love candy and I love chocolate, so I always have to have something on hand for around the holidays that involve a bunch of chocolate. So I hope this recipe helps you stick to your keto lifestyle this Easter Sunday. Don't forget to check out my Amazon shop page. The link is down in the description box below, along with the blog link to the full recipe. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. As always, I'll be back with many more keto, low-carb, healthy meals, desserts, and snack recipes. Bye guys. Happy keto candy making. What did you just eat?
Chocolate egg.
Say about the chocolate egg I made?
It's so yummy and tasty.
Yeah.